the Pact of the Knights Templar that changed the fate of the Crusades. In the silent depths of forgotten chronicles, a force once carved into the heart of warfare rises again, not as a memory, but as a pulse that still trembles beneath the ashes of medieval battlegrounds. The Knights Templar, forged in fire and discipline, marched not merely as soldiers but as guardians of a pact so powerful it shifted the balance of empires and rewrote the fate of kingdoms. Their armor carried more than steel. It carried destiny, sealed by an oath whispered in secret chambers where torches flickered over ancient symbols and shadows bent to the weight of unspoken power. This pact, born in the tension between faith and survival, became the hidden engine that propelled them through the unforgiving storms of the Crusades, shaping alliances, dictating strategies, and steering the tide of war with a precision that even kings could not comprehend. In this silent agreement lay a force capable of bending history, a covenant preserved in the breath of every Templar who crossed deserts, climbed blood-soaked hills, and stood unshaken before enemies who trembled at the mere sight of the red cross burning on their shields. And as their influence spread like an unseen current through citadels and battle lines, the world learned that this pact was not just an oath of loyalty, but a weapon crafted in secrecy, a weapon designed to alter the very fabric of conflict. What emerged from this binding vow was a legacy so potent that centuries could not dissolve it, a ripple of power still echoing in the ruins of fortresses and in the stories whispered by the stones of ancient temples. Now, as these echoes call out through time, the truth behind the Pact of the Knights Templar unfolds, revealing the silent architecture of a war that would have ended differently had these warriors not bound themselves to a purpose greater than their own lives. In an age where kingdoms trembled under the weight of shifting empires, the Knights Templar emerged as a relentless force that blended faith with ferocity, strategy with secrecy, and devotion with a power that rulers could barely understand. Their presence reshaped the political structure of the medieval world, carving pathways of influence across deserts, fortresses, and sacred lands. Yet beneath the disciplined march of their armies and the gleam of their white mantles marked with red, something far more profound guided their every step. A silent pact forged in hidden halls, a covenant infused with purpose, unity, and an unwavering vision that transformed them into a brotherhood feared and revered throughout the Crusades. This pact did not echo through public proclamations. It whispered through the hearts of the warriors, who carried its flame and allowed it to mold their destiny like an unseen architect of war. Across the vast landscapes of the Holy Land, where dust rose in swirling columns and the heat of the sun carved shadows long and sharp, this pact operated like a pulse beneath the surface of every campaign. It empowered strategies more audacious than any army had executed, and it united knights, sergeants, and commanders under a single unbreakable spirit. Their devotion to this hidden vow became a wellspring of resilience, driving them to hold positions against overwhelming forces and to protect pilgrims even when death brushed close enough to feel its cold breath. Every step they took resonated with the presence of this oath, forging a reputation that struck fear into enemies and earned admiration from allies who sensed that the Templars carried something greater than steel. Inside the stone corridors of their fortresses, lit by flickering torches that cast shifting patterns on ancient walls, the pact infused the air like a living presence. It shaped their conduct, their discipline, and their silent synchrony on the battlefield. The oath united them beyond bloodlines, merging their identities into a single soul that moved through war with calculated precision. Although kings commanded armies and nobles forged alliances, the Templars carried within their ranks a power no earthly throne could offer, an unwavering brotherhood bound by a vow that did not bend under political pressure or battlefield chaos. This unity became their greatest weapon, turning them into an unstoppable force capable of defending strategic points with a determination unmatched by any contemporary order. As the Crusades unfolded, the influence of this pact began to sculpt victories and losses, not through brute strength alone, but through the intelligent coordination and spiritual fire that guided each Templar. Their battles were not merely territorial conflicts, they were expressions of a deeper mission encoded within the vow. When they stood in formation, shields gleaming, crosses burning crimson against their white garments, they moved with the confidence of warriors who believed they were instruments of destiny. This perception transformed their resolve into something unyielding, something that turned the tide of critical battles where lesser warriors would have faltered. The Pact's presence extended beyond the battlefield. weaving itself into negotiations, alliances, and diplomatic exchanges that shifted the political balance in ways no one outside the order fully understood. Its influence could be traced in decisions that defied expectations, in strategies executed with surgical precision, and in the relentless determination of knights who fought not for individual glory, but for a vision sealed within their sacred promise. This unseen covenant shaped their identity and gave them strength that outsiders often misinterpreted as superstition or fanaticism, unaware that it was the Pact's silent gravity that aligned their every action. Even now, centuries after the fall of the Order, the remnants of this pact echo through the ruins of their fortresses and the yellowed manuscripts that survived flames and persecution. Its weight lingers in the questions historians still ask, in the mysteries unsolved, and in the lingering power of the Templars' legacy. As the truth behind this oath emerges, it reveals not only how the Knights Templar reshaped the destiny of the Crusades, but also how a single hidden pact became the backbone of a force capable of altering the course of history itself. The first pillar of the Templar Pact emerged from a principle so profound that it reshaped the very soul of the Order, an unbreakable oath of unity that surpassed bloodlines, nationalities, and personal ambition. Within the echoing stone halls of their commanderies, this vow was spoken not as a ritual of formality, but as a binding force that turned individuals into a single, living organism. Every man who knelt before the altar understood that upon rising he would no longer carry his own destiny alone. He would become part of a collective purpose forged to stand unshaken against armies, ideologies, and dangers that no ordinary knight could endure. This vow strengthened them with a resolve that operated like an internal flame, shaping their actions with discipline so precise it bordered on the supernatural. They trained, fought, and served with an awareness that any weakness of one became the weakness of all, and any strength achieved by one became a weapon shared by the entire brotherhood. Through this oath, the Templars developed a level of coordination that astonished both allies and adversaries. Their movements on the battlefield were not dictated by fear or hesitation, but by a unity so intense that it blurred the lines between individuals. 1,000 voices merged into one direction, 1,000 blades acted with a single intention, and 1,000 shields formed a living fortress capable of resisting overwhelming assaults. It was not merely discipline that bound them, it was the Pact's invisible thread weaving through each knight, turning their collective will into a force that commanded the respect of kings and the terror of enemies. Their commitment to one another enabled them to withstand sieges that crushed other armies and to enforce strategies that required unwavering precision. In the deepest moments of chaos, when the dust of battle choked the air and enemy war cries threatened to break their lines, the oath served as an anchor that kept their formation unbreakable. Yet the strength of this unity extended far beyond the clash of swords. Within the fortresses and strongholds where they rested between campaigns, the oath shaped their daily interactions, fostering an atmosphere where loyalty was not merely expected but instinctive. Each man carried the certainty that betrayal could not thrive where loyalty was the foundation of identity. This assurance created a trust so absolute that political manipulation, bribery, and internal fractures, common enemies of medieval military orders, found no purchase among the Templars. Their unity became the ultimate safeguard, turning the Pact into an engine of stability that enabled them to operate across continents without fracturing under pressure. On diplomatic missions, in negotiations with kings, and even in moments when their survival depended on silent cooperation, the Templars exhibited a cohesion that outsiders could not decipher. Their decisions reflected the Pact's influence, creating a resonance that allowed their actions to mirror one another with uncanny harmony. This internal alignment became one of the most formidable strengths of the Order, elevating them above rival factions and granting them a reputation as a disciplined, impenetrable force. Those who encountered them sensed an aura of purpose that transcended the visible world, as if each knight carried within him the same heartbeat, pulsing from a single, sacred source. Through this first pillar of the Pact, the Knights Templar became more than warriors. They became instruments of a purpose greater than themselves. It was this unity, this silent merging of wills, that transformed the Order into an unstoppable presence during the Crusades. Their oath created a foundation so unshakable that even when surrounded by enemies or confronted with impossible odds, they moved with a certainty that defied the brutality of the battlefield. The power of their unity became the cornerstone of their legendary influence, igniting the first spark in a pact that would reshape the destiny of the Crusades and leave a mark on history too deep to erase. The second pillar of the Templar Pact emerged from a strategic vision so advanced and unconventional that it redefined the art of warfare in the medieval world. While other armies relied on sheer numbers, impulsive charges, and the unpredictable temperament of feudal levies, the Knights Templar forged a doctrine rooted in discipline, coordination, and calculated precision. This strategic genius was not merely the result of military training, it was the product of a shared vow that aligned their minds as much as their swords. Through the Pact, they embraced a singular purpose: to transform every battlefield into a stage where their unity, tactics, and unwavering resolve could overpower even the most formidable adversaries. What appeared to outsiders as fearlessness was, in truth, the execution of a plan conceived with near mathematical clarity, a plan that evolved as the order expanded across continents and gained mastery over diverse forms of terrain, enemy strategies, and logistical challenges. Their strategies were engineered to exploit the unpredictability of war while minimizing risk. One of the most defining elements of their approach was the disciplined cavalry charge that earned them a reputation as unstoppable. Unlike other medieval knights who charged in disorganized waves, the Templars moved as a single force, their lances aligned, their formation tight enough to appear as a wall of steel descending upon the enemy. The Pact ensured that no knight would break formation or seek glory by acting independently. Instead, each man became a fragment of a collective will that crashed into enemy lines with devastating impact. The psychological force of their presence alone could shatter weaker armies before the first clash of arms. To onlookers, it appeared as though the Templars moved by instinct, but in reality, their movements were the result of careful planning, guided by the unseen principles of the Pact. Beyond the battlefield, the strategic brilliance of the Pact manifested in the way the Templars constructed their fortresses. These strongholds were not simply shelters, they were architectural weapons positioned at vital crossroads, trade routes, and vantage points that allowed them to control vast regions of the Holy Land. Their commanderies served as nodes in a vast military network, capable of transporting warriors, supplies, and information with unparalleled speed. The Pact demanded that every fortress serve a strategic purpose, transforming the order into a military machine that operated with a level of geographic awareness far superior to that of their rivals. This mastery of logistics granted them the ability to reinforce distant cities, anticipate invasions, and execute maneuvers that seemed impossible given the technological limitations of the time. The second pillar also influenced the Templars' intelligence-gathering operations. They established relationships with local populations, merchants and travelers who unknowingly contributed information that sharpened the Order's understanding of every political and military threat. This knowledge allowed the Templars to anticipate enemy movements, negotiate from positions of strength, and deploy their forces with a precision that often left their adversaries bewildered. In this sense, the Pact extended beyond a spiritual oath. It became a framework that shaped every tactical and strategic decision made by the Order. Even within their inner circles, discussions of war and diplomacy carried the undertone of the Pact's influence, guiding decisions that determined the fate of cities, armies, and kingdoms. Ultimately, the strategic vision embodied in this second pillar transformed the Knights Templar into the cornerstone of many Crusader victories. Their mastery of tactics and logistics elevated them from a mere military order to an indispensable force whose presence could alter the trajectory of entire campaigns. The Pact turned strategy into destiny, forging a path through which the Templars reshaped the Crusades, not through chance or sheer force, but through calculated brilliance that eclipsed the capabilities of every army around them. The third pillar of the Templar Pact arose from a source of power that set the Order apart from every other force on the medieval battlefield, an unwavering spiritual conviction that fortified their minds and bodies with a resilience unmatched by any contemporary army. This was not a simple belief or religious ritual, it was a profound internalized force that functioned as the heartbeat of their identity. Within the dimly lit chapels of their commanderies, illuminated only by candles flickering against stone walls etched with ancient symbols, each knight embraced a spiritual discipline that sharpened their resolve and shaped their courage. The Pact bound them to a sacred mission that transcended survival or victory. It infused them with the sense that every action, every sacrifice, and every moment on the battlefield was woven into a greater divine purpose. This conviction elevated their endurance to a level that seemed almost otherworldly, enabling them to push beyond normal human limits in the face of overwhelming adversity. Their spiritual strength operated like an invisible armor when enemy forces outnumbered them, or when the heat of desert campaigns drained even seasoned warriors. The Templars pressed forward, driven by a faith that made fear irrelevant and hesitation impossible. Their vow awakened a clarity that cut through the chaos of war, allowing them to maintain order, even when the ground trembled under the thunder of charging armies. This resilience was not blind fanaticism. It was a disciplined channeling of inner focus, shaped through years of training, meditation, and the collective reinforcement of their brotherhood. Each knight carried the Pact's spiritual weight like a flame within, a flame that guided their actions with unbreakable discipline. It was this inner fire that made them capable of defending citadels against impossible odds and riding into battles where defeat seemed certain. The third pillar also shaped their understanding of sacrifice. While many medieval warriors fought for wealth, glory, or personal advancement, the Knights Templar fought for purpose. They saw death not as the end of their mission, but as a transition that fed into a legacy far greater than themselves. This perspective allowed them to face overwhelming dangers with composure that unsettled even their most formidable enemies. Their spiritual vow stripped fear of its power, enabling them to remain steady in moments when other armies would crumble. The Pact transformed their approach to warfare into a sacred duty, ensuring that every strategy, every stance, and every strike carried the full force of their devotion. Beyond the battlefield, the spiritual unity of the Order influenced their diplomacy, governance, and internal discipline. The Templars approached negotiations not from a place of ambition, but from a philosophical alignment with the principles encoded in the Pact. Their spiritual vision shaped their decisions with a clarity that kings envied and rivals feared. Even in the most intricate political entanglements, their sense of divine mission provided a foundation that prevented corruption, internal divisions, or moral compromise. This unwavering focus allowed them to maintain their integrity despite the pressures of power, wealth, and influence. Ultimately, it was this spiritual fortitude, this third pillar of the Pact, that elevated the Templars into legends. Their courage became the embodiment of their vow, and their resilience became the measure of their devotion. Through their unyielding belief, the Knights Templar transformed themselves into instruments of a purpose that transcended the boundaries of kingdoms and centuries. Their spiritual strength, fused into the Pact that shaped their identity, became one of the most enduring forces in the history of the Crusades, leaving a legacy that continues to echo through time. The fourth pillar of the Templar Pact manifested through their mastery of secrecy and information, an intricate network of intelligence that operated silently beneath the surface of every crusade, alliance, and military campaign. This was not merely a collection of scattered reports or rumors gathered by travelers. It was a structured, disciplined system refined by a brotherhood that understood the true nature of power. Knowledge, when controlled with precision, could shift the outcome of wars more decisively than swords or fortresses. From the moment a knight pledged himself to the Order, he entered a world where every observation, every whisper, and every subtle movement across the lands of the East and West became threads woven into a vast web of strategic awareness. The Pact demanded vigilance, and this vigilance birthed an intelligence network so effective that even kings, desperate for reliable information, often sought the Templars' counsel before planning their own campaigns. Within cities, strongholds, markets, and caravan routes, the Templars built silent channels of communication that allowed them to gather and transmit knowledge with speed and accuracy unheard of in their era. Merchants who crossed dangerous territories unknowingly supplied information that sharpened the Order's understanding of shifting alliances, impending threats, and the movements of enemy armies. Pilgrims, guided by Templar protection, revealed insights about distant regions. Local populations interacting with the Order's garrisons shared information without suspecting its strategic significance. All of this was absorbed, catalogued, and interpreted by minds trained to foresee danger long before it materialized. The Pact's fourth pillar transformed the Templars into unseen watchers of the medieval world, eyes and ears stretched across continents, all linked by a vow that turned information into a weapon more potent than steel. This intelligence network extended beyond simple observation. The Templars mastered coded communication, discreet signaling, and the use of riders who moved with unmatched speed between their fortresses. They understood that messages could determine the survival of entire cities, and so they protected their communication routes with the same intensity they brought to the battlefield. The Pact reinforced a discipline that prevented leaks, betrayal, or even accidental disclosure. Every piece of information was treated as sacred, and every knight carried the weight of silence with a solemnity that rivaled their spiritual vows. Even under torture, during the darkest days of the Order's persecution, many Templars chose death rather than reveal the inner workings of their intelligence system. Through this mastery of secrecy, the Templars gained the ability to anticipate danger in ways their enemies could not comprehend. They knew when armies gathered, when supplies dwindled, when political tensions shifted, and when betrayals brewed within royal courts. Their ability to foresee threats shaped their strategies with near-prophetic accuracy, allowing them to fortify vulnerable cities, position reinforcements at precisely the right moment, and negotiate from positions of immense strength. Even the most feared adversaries found themselves outmaneuvered by an enemy who seemed always one step ahead, an advantage born directly from the Pact's fourth pillar. In the end, this mastery of intelligence became one of the most influential forces guiding the Templar destiny. While legends celebrate their courage and fortresses immortalize their discipline, it was the silent flow of knowledge, carefully gathered, skillfully guarded, and powerfully applied, that allowed the Knights Templar to shape the Crusades with unparalleled influence. Through the fourth pillar, the Pact transformed secrecy into strength, turning information into the invisible blade that carved their legacy into the vast tapestry of history. The fifth pillar of the Templar Pact revealed itself through their unmatched ability to forge alliances, an intricate diplomatic power that extended far beyond the battlefield and into the political foundations of empires. While kings negotiated through pride and nobles defended their territories through brute force, the Knights Templar operated with a deeper, more strategic understanding of influence. Bound by the Pact, they developed a diplomatic presence that allowed them to form connections with rulers, merchants, religious leaders, and even former enemies in ways no other military order could replicate. Their reputation for discipline, integrity, and unwavering purpose granted them access to courts and councils where few outsiders were welcomed. With every alliance they forged, they expanded their reach like silent architects of geopolitical balance, shaping the destiny of the Crusades not only through warfare, but through the delicate manipulation of power itself. Through these alliances, the Templars secured resources that strengthened their military campaigns. Kings trusted them with vast sums of money, granting the Order control over treasuries and trade networks that financed armies across continents. Their diplomatic skill allowed them to negotiate terms that ensured the safe passage of pilgrims, the reinforcement of besieged cities, and the establishment of strongholds that served as anchors of stability in volatile regions. The Pact encouraged unity not only within the Order, but also with partners who recognized the Templars' unique position as intermediaries between faith and war. This ability to maintain alliances, even with rival factions of Christianity and local powers of the East, gave the Templars a diplomatic advantage that other crusading forces lacked entirely. Their influence extended into the sphere of commerce, where the Templars created one of the most advanced financial networks of the medieval world. By establishing relationships with traders and economic leaders, they facilitated the flow of resources that sustained entire armies. Their alliances were not merely political, they were logistical lifelines that allowed the Crusades to continue even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Pact guided their economic strategies with the same precision it guided their military actions, ensuring that the Order remained financially resilient and operationally prepared for any threat. These alliances also granted them valuable intelligence about the intentions of rival powers, further reinforcing the pillars of secrecy and strategy within the Pact. Diplomatically, the Templars demonstrated an ability to navigate conflicts with a level of finesse that astonished both allies and adversaries. They served as mediators between warring factions, brokers of peace when it served strategic purpose, and protectors of agreements that shaped the political landscape. Their presence often carried an authority that overlapped religious, military, and political boundaries, giving them the rare ability to influence decisions that determined the fate of kingdoms. Even rulers, who mistrusted the Order, acknowledged the necessity of Templar involvement in critical affairs, recognizing that their neutrality and discipline brought stability to otherwise volatile negotiations. Ultimately, the fifth pillar of the Pact formed the backbone of the Templars' far-reaching influence. Their diplomatic mastery allowed them to sculpt alliances that outlasted battles and shaped the Crusades, not only through combat, but through the strategic manipulation of power. The Templars understood that true dominance required more than battlefield victories. It required interconnected relationships that transcended borders and created a web of influence capable of shifting the direction of history. Through this final pillar, the Pact solidified the Knights Templar as not just warriors, but as architects of a geopolitical legacy whose echoes continue to resonate through the corridors of time. In the quiet aftermath of wars that reshaped continents and swallowed empires, the true weight of the Templar Pact reveals itself not merely in the victories won or the fortresses razed, but in the enduring legacy carved into the very bones of history. Long after the banners fell, after the sands reclaimed the scars of battlefields, and after fire sought to erase their name from the world, the essence of the Knights Templar refused to vanish. Their pact, woven through unity, strategy, spiritual resilience, secrecy, and alliances, became an immortal imprint, echoing through centuries as a force that transcended borders and generations. This legacy transformed them into more than an order. It forged them into a symbol of discipline, mystery, and unbreakable purpose that continues to captivate the imagination of kings, scholars, warriors, and seekers of hidden truth. Through this eternal legacy, the Templars became architects of a story that outlived their own downfall. Their unity laid the foundation for future brotherhoods and military doctrines. Their strategies influenced modern warfare, revealing that victory flows not from chaos, but from coordinated brilliance. Their spiritual fire demonstrated that resilience is born from conviction, offering a blueprint for courage that resonates far beyond medieval crusades. Their mastery of secrecy inspired codes, rituals, and encrypted systems that shaped the evolution of intelligence networks across the centuries. Their alliances, stretching across cultures and continents, stood as proof that power thrives when diplomacy and purpose walk hand in hand. Each pillar of the Pact became a torch that illuminated the path of history long after the order itself had been shattered. Even as persecution tried to silence them, their legacy found refuge in manuscripts, symbols, legends, and the whispers of those who survived the flames. And through these whispers, the spirit of the Templar Pact endured, moving like a hidden current beneath the surface of the modern world. Their story continues to rise from the ruins of ancient fortresses, to echo through the chambers of forgotten cathedrals, and to live within the fascination that surrounds their mysteries. This is the true immortality of the Knights Templar, a legacy so deeply rooted in human consciousness that no king, no enemy, and no decree could extinguish its flame. Today, their legacy stands not as a relic of the past, but as a timeless reminder that purpose, discipline, and conviction can reshape the course of entire civilizations. The pact that once bound them continues to inspire, challenging us to see beyond the visible world and to recognize the power of unity and vision. And so, as their shadows stretch across centuries, the Knights Templar remain more than a chapter in history. They remain an immortal order whose essence endures, carved into the very foundation of the human pursuit of meaning, strength, and truth. If this journey into the hidden pact of the Knights Templar ignited your imagination and revealed a side of history that few ever glimpse, then let your next step deepen that connection. Stay with this channel, where the shadows of the past continue to rise with stories of secrets, power, and mysteries that shaped entire civilizations. Subscribe now, activate notifications, and be ready for the next revelation that will carry you even further into the world of ancient orders and forgotten empires. And if this story moved you, share your thoughts below. Your voice becomes part of the legacy we uncover together.